Hello, so this is just a quick follow-up video that we're posting just as a follow-up from the video around this pharmaceutical company that recently suffered a ransomware attack. Just a little update for you, and I'm gonna post one more video I think after this, just to paint a little bit of a picture as to kind of what can happen when a situation like this happens, and the kind of follow-up steps really. So just as a brief reminder, the organisation was a pharmaceutical distributor and reseller. They found themselves in a situation where they had no backups, no segregation, and so as a result, the threat actors actually knew there was no backups and no segregation, and so they knew that when they did compromise the organisation, they knew they'd very easily be able to pivot from one point into another and encrypt their entire environment. So the organisation was completely down, couldn't operate, I think with a total of 3, maybe even 4 weeks. As a result, they lost around £500,000 in revenue. As a follow-up to that, since then, just to finish off one quick point, was that the threat actors, by the way, not only did they knew there was no sort of segregation, they knew they could propagate, they also knew there was no backup, and that as a result, any negotiation to reduce the ransom just failed, because the threat actors knew exactly what the inner workings of the systems were like, where the backups were stored. They knew they had the backups, and therefore they knew that the organisation had no recourse really, and so they were in a very strong position, frankly. So since then, they've paid the ransom. They're in the process of rebuilding their environment. Part of their team is still completely offline while they rebuild. They are currently in the process of migrating away from their on-premise services into Office 365. They've since deployed tooling to detect any residual threats. This is fundamentally an MDR, right, managed detection and response, but there's technical tooling. It's backed up by a 24/7 human-led threat team. They believe there's a very high chance that the organisation was compromised as a result of their particular employee clicking on a phishing link. They're still undertaking forensics to understand if that is the case, but they really strongly believe that that is the case. So they're now kind of revisiting their cyber awareness training, and they also believe their Active Directory was poorly set up, which allowed the compromise to happen and the privilege escalation to happen in the first place. So at this point, again, the reason why I'm talking about this is it's a stark reminder that, first of all, you don't carry out phishing training and cyber awareness training just to tick a box. You do it so that when an attack like this happens, it doesn't impact your organization and it doesn't bring you down, and you don't actually have a loss of revenue and, you know, reputational damage and everything else that goes with it. The other thing is, you don't deploy an MDR just to use up budget and just to get the latest technology in your environment. You do it so that you can spot the threats and react to them before it turns into something. Similarly, you don't have a pen test just to satisfy regulation. You do it to detect the methods through which an organisation or your organisation could be compromised. So look, a breach can occur, it does happen, but you're putting all these steps in place to ensure that your organisation doesn't become breached, you don't suffer a ransomware attack, you're not in a situation where you're down for 3 weeks, you're having to pay the ransom, you've got no recovery point. You know, this is a great reminder. It's not a great reminder, it's a stark reminder that organisations really need to remember why we're doing what we're doing. Why are we taking all these steps, spending the money, strategically considering how you approach cybersecurity? It's to stop things like this from happening. So just keep a lookout onto our cyber brief. We'll continue to update as this particular scenario progresses. But like I said, I'll probably just post one more video about this and then we'll kind of move on.